This is my musical critique by the angel Jennifer with helping me for my song music, my music called Bertha 4. It's a 20-minute long piece, as most of my music is. So here goes. The tone of it is kind of in a sorry way, as if the music's saying I'm sorry. It's kind of like an apology. Plato talks about his apology, Socrates' apology, but in this sense, for Plato, Socrates' apology means defense, a defense of himself in court, in a court, as for his life, because he was accused of impiety and corrupting the youth. The sorrow, the sorrowfulness, also relates to one poem I've been thinking about, how where sorrow is personified and it builds a shed. But most of all, sorry represents the sorrowful face of Don Quixote, who traveled through Spain on adventures, but he was kind of crazed. He had a sorrowful face because people would do terrible things to him, beat him up and all, even though he thought that he was a knight. Now, this music also has a resolution in it, a sense of things being resolved, and that reminds me of Hamlet's soliloquy where he talks about, oh, this too sullied or sallied or flesh, if it would resolve itself into a dew, and so that kind of resolution is close to the Lurianic resolution in some ways, where things get better for the person. A Lurianic from the Kabbalah, a kind of resolution he had was with our broken sparks going back up into heaven, that kind of resolution by acts of knowing. Cleopatra and Anthony have a resolution. It's called Making Up. And this is I think the best part about the music is the music is kind of a making up music. It also relates to Book 24 of the Iliad. Although the music is a little more fast-paced than Book 24 of the Iliad, where King Priam comes into Achilles' tent to retrieve the body of the king's son, whom Achilles had killed. Hector was his name, and he was assisted by Iris, which is a rainbow. The king was able to get into the camp unseen with this rainbow, and that's how they had a conversation and they made up kind of a little bit about in that story. This is a conversational. Another aspect of this music is that it's conversational. 1/3 of the Iliad is conversations between warriors and all gods to the rest of its narrative. But the best part about Don Quixote is that it is a conversation book between the knight Don Quixote and his squire Sancho Panza, and their humor, their interactions between each other that are really funny. There's also the idea of a direct musical conversation, taking a suggestion from Ralph Waldo Emerson and also his mentor Michel de Montaigne, because they had a style that was an intimate style. It's also kind of an intimation, that means like a hint, or if it's intimate, it might relate more to lovers, like as in Keats's Ode to Psyche. As with being conversational, there's also a sense of error or a mistake that kind of relates back to the making up part. But that the error reminds me of the play by Shakespeare called A Comedy of Errors. So if you take the idea of it being conversational and add to it the idea of an mistakefulness, the style comes closest, I think, to the humorous Dogberry in Much Ado About Nothing, who tries to save um, the king's daughter with, I mean, the duke's daughter, Hero, from slander with some knowledge that he found out, but pretty much at at the marriage they won't listen to him because he comes as an uninvited guest with his guards, and they won't listen to him because he babbles. He doesn't get to the point. He has a funny way of talking. Um, Also, there's the idea of the recognition of the error in Freud, which is important for Freudian psychoanalysis, where the client who's on the couch talking about their dreams and their parents and their sexual lives, they come to realize different aspects of themselves through recognition of their own symbolism in their lives, their own perspectives of their lives. That's a psychoanalytical method. The music also conveys a kind of Platonism in one way, just one way, because knowledge triumphs over ignorance. That's the same thing as saying a recognition, um, as if it was a patient, but instead this would be like a student or a scholar, where they learn things and knowledge triumphs over ignorance. So the two aspects, the two divisions I see are the tragical kind with the sorrowfulness and the resolution, and the comic side with the conversational and the error. As in Comedy of Errors also had a mistaken set of identities between twins being mistaken for each other. But it was Aristophanes who said that if you're writing, great writers know how to write both comedy and tragedy, and the best example of that would be Shakespeare. And the best idea that Shakespeare ever expressed about writing both kinds of styles was in Hamlet, his play, with the character Polonius, who talks about an unlimited poem, where he talks about it being tragicomical, comic, tragedy, historical, tragical, and so on. But pretty much the Hamlet style beats Plato's style of knowledge triumphing over ignorance, because when you have a poem that's unlimited, it's an invention and therefore a sophistry, but that's always going to be better than Plato's idea of knowledge triumphing over ignorance, especially because Plato tried to eliminate the poets from his perfect society. That's pretty much what my music, called Bertha 4, reminds me of, and that's my musical interpretation, thanks to Angel Jennifer.